Good evening to all of you. We welcome you to this third webinar in our series. This webinar is on problem solving. I am Professor Balaji Reddy. This webinar will be presented by Mr. Suresh Lulla, who will touch upon two sub-skills that effective problem solving require. First, a structured thinking of a proven methodology, and an appropriate application of quality and creativity tools. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Suresh Lulla. Mr. Suresh Lulla pioneered the quality movement in India by setting up Qimpro Consultants 30 years ago. Often referred to as the quality guru of India, Mr. Lulla was mentored by Dr. Joseph M. Juran, the father of quality, who, along with Mahatma Gandhi and Sri Ramakrishna Bajaj, formed the trinity of Mr. Lulla's role models. He jokes that the one thing he has in common with his role models is a bald head. Mr. Suresh Lulla is a veteran professional with over 50 years of experience as a management consultant, speaker, trainer, coach, author, and my favorite, storyteller. In 2003, Mr. Lulla's first book, World Class Quality, an Executive Handbook, was published by Tata McGraw-Hill. Since then, Mr. Lulla has authored 75 quality fables, short narratives with crisp business lessons based on his experiences with clients since 1972. 3 volumes of 25 quality fables, each are available through Qimpro bookstore. He is in the process of writing the final 25 fables. Before we begin, I would like to inform you that a recording of this webinar will be shared on our website and on LinkedIn, so please follow Qimpro's page. We hope you enjoy the webinar and we look forward to your feedback. Over to you, Mr. Lulla.
Thank you, Balaji, for your kind words. Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the third Qimpro webinar. The subject today is problem solving using quality improvement tools and creativity tools. I'd like to start by asking you, what is the job of a manager? The job of a manager is to solve problems. Is it a full-time job? Yes. Because we work in organizations that have legitimized poor quality of products and processes. Legitimized through the financial budget. Products include goods and services. Processes include manufacturing and non-manufacturing processes. How did this happen? Let me explain. Here is a grid. On the y-axis, we have the levels in an organization. Workforce, middle management, upper management. On the x-axis, we have time. Starting from the left, you have planning, time invested in planning. The balance of the time is spent in operations. At the lowest level, you will find that a worker spends half an hour maybe planning his daily work and then gets on to operations. As he goes up, he spends more time planning and lesser on operations. And this goes on to upper managers, till finally top management spends most of their time planning and a little bit in operations, probably signing letters or checks. This is the ideal situation. What happens in reality is when a worker is promoted, he does not release his responsibilities for operations. As he goes up further, he clings on to control of operations till finally even upper management does not do as much planning as they should. They spend their time in operations. This creates a management gap where each level thinks the other is doing the work. So upper managers think the middle managers are doing their work, and middle managers think the upper managers are doing their work. A fire happens because of the gap. This fire creates problems. And to solve problems, we have a Qimpro problem solving matrix. The steps of problem solving are shown in the spine of this matrix, 12 steps. To the left are quality improvement tools, and to the right are creativity tools. I'll take you through the spine first. Organizations have chronic problems. We need to identify them and prioritize them. Prioritizing requires that we work on few problems that give us the biggest bang results. So we identify chronic problems. Now the problem selects the team. Team members are those who are most impacted by the problem. The internal processor, the internal supplier, the internal customer. A typical project team would have 5 members. These 5 members in real world tend to blame one another. Now they have to work as a team. They are committed to solving the problem. First step as a team is to analyze the symptomatic evidence of the problem. You have a headache, you analyze the kind of headache you have. Based on the symptoms of the problem, you then identify or brainstorm into hypotheses of causes. These hypotheses are only hypotheses, they are not data. Therefore, as a following step, you test the hypotheses. You test the hypotheses with data. You prove it or you disprove the hypothesis till you come to the root cause or causes of the problem. Very often organizations stop at this step. But the real benefit is gained when you go further. When you implement a solution to correct the root cause. So, ideally, you should be looking at alternative solutions to the problem and select the one that makes the most sense. For that solution, you develop controls and you now go towards the implementation. This is the hard part, where you confront resistance to change. People don't like change. The resistance comes not directly. The resistance hides the social consequence of the change. What will this change do to my status, to my job? Will I become redundant? Identifying the behavioral issues calls for a behavioral scientist. You may need to bring in the specialist to help you through. Once you have a breakthrough with a change, you start implementing controls on a trial basis. You check the performance, and finally, you lock it into a system of controls. This seems a long journey. It does take time. A typical chronic problem would take about 10 weeks. But this is only the methodology. To be effective, like a good surgeon, you need to work with the right tools and the right combination of tools. In the case of problem solving, we believe you need to tap the total potential of your brain. Left brain, logical tools, and right brain, creativity tools. The logical tools will aid you with incremental improvements, and the creativity tools will help you with disruptive innovations. Flow diagram, which you see on your extreme left, is probably the most important tool you need to learn. It guides you through almost every step of problem solving. 2. Brainstorming. Brainstorming does not provide you facts. It only provides you ideas. Cause and effect gives you a logical relationship between the ideas that result in the effect being the symptom of the problem. Data collection. We all believe we know data collection. Data collection is probably the toughest tool. The root cause of this misapplication of the tool is that we don't know the questions we are seeking answers to. Data collection can be tedious. We need to have economy of effort. So unless you know the questions you are seeking an answer to, you will not know what information will answer those questions. For that information, we need to know how it's communicated, how it's analyzed, and therefore what data should be gathered. The responsibility for designing data collection is squarely with the team. It is not fully delegable. Graphs and charts are a pictorial representation of the data. stratification enables you to see a problem from different windows. You can stratify a problem in terms of cycle time, in terms of failures, in terms of cost of poor quality. Your inferences will differ. Pareto analysis enables you to prioritize your efforts. Histogram shows you univariate analysis. This univariate analysis can be romanced, particularly by the purchase department. Scatter diagram is a bivariate analysis which shows you cause and effect. And box plot shows you parallel variations. These tools have to be selectively used in combinations at different steps of problem solving. As mentioned earlier, flow diagram runs through all the steps. And when you're testing hypotheses and identifying root causes, you probably use all the tools. This gives you incremental improvement results. Now, what if you didn't have the luxury of time and you needed to come up with solutions in a disruptive fashion? That is where you use creativity tools to complement for all the 12 steps of problem solving. All the creativity tools have a foundation in brainstorming. While they have very complicated names, I won't go into the details right now, but they all have a foundation in brainstorming. You can solve problems this way. I'd like to now take you through one of the first problems we have solved in India, and that was in 1989. The quality fable that follows will demonstrate that chronic problems should not be legitimized in the budget. You need an autopsy. You need to walk the flow diagram. You need to see the problem with your own eyes. And improvement projects should always be approved by the senior management. The root cause of a chronic problem is always a surprise. It is not the widely held beliefs of the team members. So let's look at this fable, which is on legitimizing absenteeism. A chronic problem at a steel plant in eastern India was absenteeism. Now, absenteeism was taken for granted, particularly when it was so insignificant as 1%. But if there are 65,000 people in the plant, at least 650 people are absent every day. So the management met and they decided that absenteeism should be addressed. Absenteeism, let's factor in that 1% absenteeism into our operational plans. And we'll even budget for that. We will recruit more people. Thereafter, the Quality Council of the steel plant decided, let's have absenteeism as one of our 5 pilot projects. They also considered leaking roofs in the quarters. They also considered garbage not collected. Why were they looking at these kind of problems? Because they had a high volume of workers, and these workers, we had to seed the culture of quality in this wide population. So choose problems that impact the workers the most. So when you have an elephant-sized problem, how do you solve it? You solve it bite by bite. You can't eat an elephant in one bite, but you can solve the problem bite by bite. Project by project. The bite-sized pilot project for absenteeism was localized in the smallest division, the tubes division. The cost of poor quality was used to pull the alarm. The works manager of the tubes division identified all the non-controversial heads for assessing the COPQ. 1. The cost of a daily badli. 2. Because of the lack of skills in the badli, the variation in the tube lengths. What did this figure come to? 14 lakhs per month in 1999. 12 months, alarming COPQ. So they looked at the symptoms and started a diagnostic journey. And since you need an autopsy, you had to start meeting the absent workers in their homes. A typical interview was where we went to a worker at about 3 in the afternoon, knocked on the door, and a very healthy looking Sardar opened the door. He was in a lungi folded up and a ganji. He looked the picture of health. Why are you absent? My son is not well. Beta bimar hai. Is it serious? No. Just a simple cough and cold. In which case, why are you absent? Sir, I went to the hospital, the local company hospital. The admissions paperwork took 3 hours. Then I waited in another line with my son to meet the doctor. That was 1 more hour. Finally, I waited for half an hour for the prescribed medication from the pharmacist, by which time you had already marked me absent for the full day. So where were the remedial actions? The remedial actions were at the hospital, where a re-engineering of the admissions process was undertaken. From 3 hours, we reduced it to 30 minutes in 1990. The smallest division of the plant had a multiplier effect on the entire campus because the solution could be cloned organization-wide at 65,000 employees. What was the magnitude of the savings from one project? 80 crores per annum. So what are the lessons we've learned? Chronic problems should not be legitimized in the budget. Whether it is inventory, whether it is accounts receivable, whether it's recruitment process, chronic problems should not be legitimized in the budget. One must use a structured problem-solving methodology. We shouldn't rush from symptom to remedy. You must go from symptom to cause to remedy. Elephant-sized problems must be broken down to bite-sized projects. When working on COPQ, don't get involved with controversial data. Work with non-debatable numbers. See the problem with your own eyes. Improvement projects should always be approved by senior management. They take time, and senior management must allow the workers or the managers to work on improvement projects. So in summary for this entire session, the job of a manager is to solve chronic problems. Chronic problems do not come with alarms. Follow a structured methodology for problem solving, chronic problem solving. Your weapon can be quality improvement tools, particularly if you use them in multiple combinations. Learn to apply creativity tools in multiple combinations. And you can't eat an elephant in one bite, but you can eat it bite by bite, project by project. That's why we call it continuous quality improvement. The byproduct of solving a chronic problem is COPQ reduction. The COPQ in any organization is 1/3 the total cost. Compare that to your profit to sales ratio. You have a superb opportunity to improve your processes through quality improvement and thereby have COPQ reduction which goes straight to the bottom line. This improvement in profit is not capital intensive. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Lulla. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this webinar was insightful. While I was watching this, I think I noted down a few points, and the key takeaways as understood by me are Well, one, identifying and taking cognizance of chronic problems is the first step towards making improvements. It takes time, and see the problem yourself in order to describe it accurately, because writing the problem statement is most important in dealing with a problem. Along with that, Mr. Lulla, there have been a couple of questions during the Q&A panel here. One of the questions was, you're saying that chronic problems, where would be the trigger for these chronic problems? Would it be in a reactive kind of a mode or a proactive an approach towards this?
Chronic problems do not come with alarms. So you have to proactively look for them. Walk your process.
Right.
Walk your processes, and you're going to see infinite number of rework loops. These rework loops are where your chronic problems are anchored. Further, challenge the standards. Our standards are based on the overall performance of an industry. So it takes a bell sheet. The modal value is seen as a standard. If you are only aiming for the standard, you are doomed to mediocrity. Challenge that standard. If you have incoming inventory, why do you have it? Because there's some incapability of the suppliers' processes. So this is a buffer. You have work in progress inventory. Why do you have it? Because you're not sure of your internal supplier. Why do you have finished goods inventory? Because I'm not sure of customer requirements. Now, when you look at this, inventory occupies space, and we have people who have to manage it. And the irony is that banks give us loans for inventory, working capital. When bankers visit your plant, you tend to increase your inventory. Question it. Get rid of the inventory, and you will find that a good part of your COPQ is taken care of. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, I think that pretty much answers the question. Also, would there be there's another question that came up here. Would there be a kind of a standardized structure in creating the team? Is it an ad hoc kind of a thing? I mean, you did mention that you need people who are facing the problem to be a part of this. But is there going to be some kind of an hierarchical structure, or is it just a group of people with certain capabilities who come together, or some specialists, something like that? Or
the problem selects the team.
Okay.
The team leader should be the one who is most blamed for the problem. There's no one else more motivated to get rid of the problem. The person most blamed may not be the senior most person in the organization. That's why you need a facilitator for a team who grooms this person into playing the role of a leader in a team. Problem selects the team. The
problems are derived from the strategic plan. Only then are they meaningful. 20% problems account for 80% of the COPQ.
Oh, yeah.
So you need the right people working on those problems. The team disbands after it's been solved.
Yes.
What else?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that saying, are there any specific tools related to the culture of an organization? Are there any tools related to looking into how we can improve the culture of an organization? Are there any kind of or do we just solve problems one by one to improve the culture of an organization? But once it gets in that we can solve problems, success sort of gives rise to more success.
So let me paraphrase. What you're saying is that how do we bring quality into the culture?
Correct, yes, very simply.
Let me share, when the Japanese acquired American plants that were not doing well in the auto industry, typically 2 persons would go to a plant. Day one, they would invite all the workers who were about to get laid off. And they would tell those workers, your jobs are secure for life. That came as a shock to the workers.
Okay.
But in order that they are secure, you need to obey us. 2 people.
Right.
The first thing you do is, as you leave this meeting, my partner will be waiting with a can of paint and brush. Go tidy up the 100 square feet you occupy. The color of machines in those days used to be dirty gray, bottle greens. What
Right.
paint do you think they got? White.
Okay.
Now, that is a way of sensitizing the worker to detecting errors. So a couple of weeks later, they again reassembled. And this time they brainstormed on, have there been any accidents on the plant? And there didn't seem to be any accidents. Finally, one guy said, oh, maybe there was an eye burn 2 years ago of one worker. To which the Japanese showed a deep concern. An accident implies something failed. Now, the Japanese, the 2 guys, made a team of top management to make sure that an eye burn never happens again. What did they accomplish? They accomplished the faith of the workers. Dignity was given to the workers. 3, they said your processes are serpentine. Let's relay this plant. Shut it for 1 month. And in that 1 month, what do they do with the workers? They taught them quality improvement. That's how it goes. Housekeeping and safety are prerequisites for quality.
Right. Okay, just I think a couple of very pinpointed questions, but they seem a little relevant. One was, would you suggest using business process simulation tools for problem solving? I think it's a bit of a specific.
It depends on the problem.
Right.
All problems don't have to be solved symptom to cause to remedy. Some problems may need a simulation as suggested by a member of the audience. They could also be a control problem. It may be a reliability problem. It may be a benchmarking problem. It may be an innovation issue. So you can't solve every problem with one methodology. But the problem-solving methodology we've shown is applicable for chronic problems in processes.
Yeah, I think there's also another question that is related to that in today's technological world where things are going digital, with quality, or maybe the quality tools play the same kind of role as before. Well, I would just like to say here to that question that these are time tested, but in any case, I think Mr. Lulla, you would like to throw light on this, that in today's world of digitization, do the quality tools play a major role?
Okay. Who defines quality? Customer. Who's the final inspector? Customer. Who pays your salary? Customer. Now, if the profile of your customer is changing to a digital customer, the digital customer, you don't know the demographics, but you have to map the behavior. You need customer segmentation over market segmentation. That's one. You will never know when a digital customer walks away from you. You need processes that are reliable. There is no room for for controlling and improving, because life cycles are also shrinking. So I would suggest that you focus on tools where you build quality into the design of the product. It has to be 100% reliable, whereby you don't need the control aspect. With robotic process automation, the robots are doing 100% inspection, which is better than the sampling you were doing earlier. So to answer your question, some of these tools will work, but there are other tools that you need to learn to build quality into design, not inspect it in operations. With shorter life cycles, there is no time for a second in the marketplace. You're either a winner or you're a loser. So that's a very pertinent question, and I've been advocating building quality into design, for which you need to work with quality function deployment. More important, you need to understand customer needs. And you need to do it faster, better, cheaper, and different to competition.
Absolutely. There was just one question here which I'd like to reply on, being on the lighter side. It says, how can you develop problem-solving skills? Well, I believe you can come to Qimpro, we'll teach you. But yeah, I mean, there is a process, and I think the more you execute, the more you learn. Another pinpointed question here would, what could be a part of COPQ? Any elaboration as a part of COPQ?
Well, broadly speaking, it's internal failure costs and external failure costs, plus a good part of appraisal costs. The fourth head is prevention, where you have to invest That investment is your improvement project time to get results in the other areas. So if you map your process through the supply chain, you're going to find rework loops along the supply chain from supplier to you, to your logistics, to the customer. If it is within your four walls, it's an internal failure. If it's without, it's an external failure. 60% of COPQ comes from purchasing. Because when we purchase for the lowest price. We should be looking at process capabilities of our supply. That'll reduce the inventories we hold and the cost of rejections. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that does.
Look at recruitment. A recruitment process. You have a wrong recruit in the right place and a right recruit in the wrong place. You have a right recruit in the right place who leads you 3 months after the training. Isn't that a COPQ?
Oh yeah.
And you have training. We make the big mistake of saying so many mandates of training per employee. That's wrong. What you need to do, you need to understand that the HR head will make a major plan to meet his KRA. And in that plan, he'll have this session, that session, scheduled on some dates. It's Friday now. And on Monday, he has to get a batch going. And only 3 people are registered. He needs 10 to run the batch. So what does he do? He calls his best friends in the organization, please send me some to fill the class. Who do you send? The idle people in your department. So who are you training? Do you get the irony of it?
Yeah.
So what you need to do is train people for action, derive your training needs from your strategic plan, train the people who should be working on this project, and they implement it. Education with action is remembered. Education without action is easily forgotten.
Yep. My God, there's so many questions coming up, Mr. Lulla, but I just want to tell the the attendees that your questions will be answered offline, but I think we have just one last question before we close. It said here that while you were making a presentation that the quality improvement project takes anything between 8 to 10 weeks. And is it not too long based on the fast changing and shorter life cycle of customer needs? Is it a wide estimate?
It's a realistic estimate. And if you are solving the vital problems of an organization that give you 80% of the impact, that's not too long.
All right.
If you're just working on trivial problems, that is long.
Yes. Right. I think that's about it for the rest of the attendees. Your questions will be answered offline by Mr. Suresh Lulla. Don't worry, your questions are not going to disappear. But I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Suresh Lulla for not only enlightening us today, but also showing the patience to take up all the questions and trying to answer them the best way possible. Just to all the attendees, if anyone is interested in purchasing Mr. Lulla's Quality Fables or signing up for a digital course on problem solving, please go to qimpro.com, or you can write to us directly at connect@qimpro.com. Well, our next webinar is on strategic quality planning and is scheduled for the 22nd of November at 4 p.m. Well, we request you to mark your calendars for that, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you so much, all of you, for attending. Thank you very much, Mr. Lulla, and everyone at Qimpro. Thank you.
Thank you, Balaji. Thank you all.
Thank you.